The stars above Earth looked peaceful, but Tinar's heart was not. Her small silver pod shook as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Sparks flew outside the window, and red lights flashed across the screen. System failure, the voice of the pod said calmly. Tina Ayer held her breath. She was just a young scout from the planet Viren. Her people had warned her about humans. They were said to be wild, loud, and dangerous. Some stories even said humans ate visitors from other planets. She didn't want to believe it, but now she was about to land crash on Earth. Alone, the pod hit the ground with a loud thump. Trees cracked and broke. Smoke rose from the back. As it skidded to a stop deep inside a green forest, Tinar sat frozen in her seat, shaking. She slowly opened the pod door. Cool wind touched her face. The air smelled of wet grass and earth. She stepped outside, her greenish skin glowing softly under the moonlight. Her large purple eyes searched the trees. Everything was quiet. No humans yet. She ran Tina AR, found a hiding place near a quiet human town. It was a small shed behind a garden full of strange plants. She didn't know what they were, but they smelled good. She slipped inside the shed and curled up in a dark corner. Her heart raced. I must stay hidden, she whispered to herself. If the human finds me, he'll eat me. She didn't sleep that night. The next morning, a man named Mark walked outside his little house. He was tall, with messy hair and kind brown eyes. He wore a simple shirt and carried a basket. He walked into his garden, checking his tomatoes and pulling weeds. When he reached the shed, he paused. Something felt different. The air was quiet. He opened the shed door slowly. He saw a small figure in the corner. Her skin was green. Her eyes were wide and glowing. She looked scared. She didn't move. Mark blinked. He had never seen anything like her before, but he didn't shout. He didn't run. Instead, he stepped back and gently closed the door. Inside the shed, Tinar shook with fear. Later that day, Mark came back. He didn't open the door this time. He just placed a small plate of food near it. It had bread, sliced apples, and a cup of water. Then he walked away. Tinar waited. Maybe it was poison. Maybe it was bait. But after a long time, hunger won. She opened the door just a little and pulled the plate inside. She sniffed the food, then took a small bite. Her eyes widened. It was sweet and soft. The apples were fresh. The water was clean. Her stomach slowly filled, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a little warm inside. This continued for days. Every morning, Mark left food. He never tried to open the door, never shouted or made loud noises. Sometimes he would. Speak softly from outside. Hope you're doing okay in there, he would say. These are fresh from the garden, Tinar listened. His voice was gentle, not like the scary voices from the stories. One evening, she peeked out of the door just. A little Mark was sitting under a tree, peeling carrots. He didn't notice her. He was humming a quiet song. His garden glowed in the golden sunset. Tinar watched in silence. He didn't look like a monster. He looked ... peaceful. But still, the warning from her elders echoed in her mind. Humans. Eat. Beasts with fire and teeth. She backed into the shed again, unsure of what to believe. One night, it rained heavily. Thunder roared and lightning lit the sky. The shed roof leaked and cold water dripped on Tinar's head. She was wet and shivering suddenly. The door opened. Mark stood there with a blanket in his hands. You'll get sick in here, he said. Come inside. I won't hurt you. Tinar looked up at him. His voice was calm. His eyes were kind. Still, she hesitated. Her body was cold and her heart was scared. I just want to help, Mark added. After a long pause, she slowly stood. Up. She took small steps toward him. Mark didn't move. He just held out the blanket. She took it. He led her inside the house. It was warm with soft lights and wooden furniture. The smell of soup filled the air. Tinar looked around in wonder. Everything was strange but not frightening. Mark gave her a towel and showed her to a small chair by the fire. She sat down. Wrapping the blanket around her, he brought a bowl of soup and placed it on the table. It's just vegetables, he smiled. Out. No meat. You'll like it. Tanar looked at him with wide eyes. Slowly, she tasted the soup. It was warm and gentle, like his voice. She looked up at him and whispered, "Why? Why feed me?" Mark shrugged. "Because you looked hungry." She stared at him for a long time. Then she said the words she had been holding inside, "You're not going to eat me?" Mark's eyes grew wide in surprise. Then he laughed softly. "No, of course not. I don't eat people," he said kindly. "I just make food for others." Tanar blinked. Everything she had been told about humans was wrong. That night, Tanar slept in a soft bed for the first time on Earth. She looked out the window and saw the stars. Somewhere out there, her people still believed she was in danger, but the only danger she had found was how much she liked human food. And maybe, just maybe, how kind a human could be. Tanar woke up to the soft smell of something cooking. It was warm and sweet, floating through the air like a song. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered the crash, the shed, and the man named Mark, who brought her in from the storm. She sat up. The blanket he gave her was still wrapped around her. The bed was soft. The little room had a window with light coming in. It was morning now. She stood quietly and opened the door to the hallway. The house was simple. Wooden floors, quiet corners, and pictures of strange things on the walls, flowers, rivers, stars. Everything was calm. She followed the smell. In the kitchen, Mark was making something on the stove. He wore an apron with the words, "Be kind," "Stir" gently printed on it. He didn't notice Tanar at first. He was focused on the pan in front of him. Tanar stepped inside slowly. Her eyes scanned the room. Plates, pots, a bowl of colorful fruit. On the table was a jar with flowers in it. Nothing looked scary. Nothing looked like a trap. Mark turned around and smiled when he saw her. "Morning," he said softly. "Duh." "Hungry?" She nodded slowly. Her stomach already answered before her mouth could. He pointed to the small wooden table and pulled out a chair. Tanar sat, still unsure but curious. Her people had said humans only cared about eating and surviving. But this one seemed to enjoy serving. Mark placed a plate in front of her. It had round, golden things, soft and warm. There was also a small dish of something sweet and red. "These are pancakes," Mark said, "and this is strawberry jam. Everything's safe. Try it." Tanar stared at the food. She picked up the fork like she had seen him do the night before. Slowly, she cut a small piece and tasted it. Her eyes widened. It was soft, slightly sweet, and the red jam tasted like fruit from her home planet, but better. She took another bite, then another, faster this time. Mark sat across from her, smiling, sipping tea from a mug. "You like it?" he asked. She nodded. Mark looked happy. "Good. I made extra." As she ate, Tanar looked around the kitchen. There were books on a shelf about cooking, gardening, and even stars. A cat-shaped timer ticked quietly on the counter. After a while, she asked, "Why do you cook so much?" Mark thought for a moment. "Cooking helps me think, and it makes people happy. I guess it's my way of being useful." Tanar tilted her head. "You don't cook too? Trap others?" He blinked, confused. "No, that's not what cooking is for." Tanar put down her fork and whispered, "My people said humans cook before they eat others. They said Earth is dangerous." Mark looked surprised. Then he gave a small laugh, not to make fun of her, but from pure disbelief. "I don't know who told you that," he said gently, "but that's not true. At least not for most humans. We cook for family, for friends, for comfort, not to hurt anyone." Tanar was quiet. Everything she'd learned felt like sand slipping from her fingers. After breakfast, Mark showed her the garden. It was full of green plants, some with fruits, some with long leaves. Butterflies flew from flower to flower, and birds chirped nearby. "This is where I grow most of the food I cook," Mark said, pointing to the rows of plants. "Want to help me pick some?" Tanar nodded. She followed him through the garden. He showed her which vegetables were ready. She touched a tomato, still warm from the sun. She had never seen food grown like this, alive, peaceful, not inside. A machine? As they worked, Tanar asked, "Why do you live alone?" Ow. Mark smiled softly. "I used to live in the city, but it was noisy and crowded. I wanted quiet, so I came here. Now it's just me and my plants. Well, and now, you." Tanar looked up at him. "You are not what I expected." Mark laughed. "Neither are you." Back in the kitchen, they washed the vegetables. Mark cut them skillfully, showing her each step. Tanar watched, fascinated by the care he put into every slice. That evening, he made soup with the fresh vegetables and served it with warm bread. Tanar helped stir the pot. She liked the sound of the spoon moving through the soup, felt safe. As they ate, she asked, "Do you trust me?" Mark looked at her with calm eyes. "I think I do. Do you trust me?" Tanar paused. Then she nodded a little. More than before. They smiled. Later, as the sky turned orange outside, Tanar sat near the window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere far away, her people still believed she was in danger. They didn't know about pancakes, soup, or someone like Mark, she thought. About her mission to observe Earth, she was supposed to send reports, but the crash had broken her communicator. She hadn't sent a message in days. She didn't know what to tell them even if she could. The human didn't eat me, he fed me. It sounded strange, but it was true. That night, as she lay in the warm bed again, Tanar thought about her new question: what if humans weren't dangerous? What if they were just different? She closed her eyes. For the first time since she landed, she felt no fear, just curiosity, and maybe a little comfort. The next morning, sunlight touched the edge of the window. Tanar slowly opened her eyes and stretched. The bed was soft, and the blankets smelled like clean cotton and warm bread. For a few seconds, she forgot she was on Earth. Then she heard a gentle clinking sound from the kitchen. She smiled. Mark was already awake, standing at the stove. He wore his usual apron and was flipping something round and golden in a pan. On the table, 2 cups of tea were already set. He looked up when Tanar walked in. "Morning," he said with a smile. "Morning," she replied softly. Mark pointed. "To the plate, these are called omelets. I used fresh herbs from the garden." Tanar sat down. She still wasn't used to this, being cared for, being given food without being asked for anything in return. Her people believed kindness always came with a hidden cost. But so far, Mark had asked for nothing. As they ate, Tanar asked, "Do you live like this every day?" Mark nodded, "Pretty much. Cook, read, walk in the forest. It's a quiet life." She looked around. The walls of the kitchen had drawings and little notes stuck to them. Some were recipes. Others were quotes written in neat handwriting. "Kindness needs no reason. Good food is a silent friend." Tanar stared at one that said, "The universe is big, but a warm meal can make it small." She liked that one. After breakfast, Mark brought out a book with pictures. It was an old children's book about animals and foods. "I thought this might help," he said. "Maybe we can learn each other's words." Tanar leaned closer. The first page showed a picture of an apple. Under it was the word apple. She nodded. "On my planet, we say Ferna." Mark repeated the word. "Fernay," she laughed. "Close enough." They spent the morning pointing to things and saying the names in both languages. Bread, spoon, chair, sun, bird. Some words were funny, and they laughed together. Their words were close between their languages, and that made them smile even more. Later, they went into the garden again. Tanar touched a yellow flower and asked, "What do you call this?" "That's a sunflower," she repeated. "Sun, flower." He nodded. "It follows the sun. That's why it's called that." She looked up at the sky. "We have something like this too. But it only opens at night." Mark asked with a grin. She smiled. "Maybe." Day by day, Tanar began to relax. She helped Mark pick vegetables, clean dishes, and even bake a pie. He showed her how to mix flour, sugar, and fruit. She didn't understand why humans put so much time into cooking. but she liked how it felt. It wasn't just about eating. It was about sharing. One evening, they made vegetable soup together. Again, as they stirred the pot, Tanar asked, "Do you ever get lonely?" Mark looked at the bubbling soup. "Sometimes. But I enjoy quiet, and now I'm not lonely anymore." She looked at him. His voice was honest. Neither of them said anything for a moment. The soup continued to bubble gently. That night, Tanar sat near the fire, holding a cup of warm tea. She looked into the flames, thinking. "Mark," she said softly, "I have to tell you something." He turned to her, setting down his book. "I wasn't just visiting Earth for fun. I was sent to observe humans, to see if the stories were true." He nodded. "What kind of stories?" She looked down. "That humans are dangerous, that they trap other beings, that they ate others." Mark didn't laugh this time. He just looked thoughtful. "And now?" he asked. She smiled a little. "Now I think those stories were wrong." Mark nodded slowly. "Sometimes people fear what they don't know. I'm sure we have stories about aliens that sound just as scary." Tanar tilted her head. "Do you?" He chuckled. Some movies show aliens trying to take over Earth. Big ships, loud noises, strange creatures." She grinned. "We don't all have big ships. I can see that now," he said kindly. Over the next few days, Tanar and Mark created a simple dictionary together. A notebook filled with words from her language and his. She even drew little pictures beside each word. They also cooked new recipes, mixing human food with ideas from Tanar's culture. She showed him how to dry leaves and grind them into powder. To make a strong drink her people loved, Mark said it tasted like strong tea mixed with sunlight. One afternoon, while they were cleaning up the garden, Tanar said, "I wish my people could see this. They would understand humans better." Mark looked at her. "Will they come looking for you?" She nodded. "Maybe, if they think I'm missing." He became quiet. "And what will they do?" "If they find me." Tanar looked serious. "I don't." "No, but I'll protect you the way you protected me." Mark smiled. "Then I trust you." That evening, they sat under the stars. Tanar pointed to a faint blue dot in the sky. "That's where I came from." Mark squinted. "So far away." She nodded. "And yet I crashed right next to your garden. Strange how the universe works," he said. "Not strange," she replied. "Maybe it wanted me to meet you." Mark looked at her, surprised by her words. Then he said softly, "I'm glad you did." As the night grew quiet, Tanar felt something new inside her. Not fear, not confusion. It was peace. The days passed like soft music. Tanar and Mark spent their mornings in the garden and their evenings near the fire. Every day brought something new, new words, new recipes, and new smiles. But Tanar still carried one question in her heart. Why had Mark been so kind to her from the start? One morning, Mark looked up at the sky and smiled. "It's going to be sunny all day," he said. "Perfect weather for a picnic." Tanar tilted her head. "What's a picnic?" Mark grinned. "You'll see. But first, we cook." The kitchen filled with color and warmth as they prepared the meal together. Tanar helped wash vegetables while Mark made sandwiches and packed fruit in a basket. They made sweet drinks using garden berries and added a slice of pie each. Picnic. "Rule number 1, Mark said, packing a soft blanket. "The food must taste better outside." Tanar smiled. "Is that a real rule?" Maybe Mark said, laughing. "But I follow it anyway." Also, they walked together into the woods. Mark led her through the trees to a quiet meadow filled with wildflowers. Birds sang above and butterflies danced in the sun. Tanar looked around in wonder. "It's beautiful here." Mark spread the blanket under a tall tree. He placed the basket in the middle and sat down. Tanar joined him, sitting cross-legged, her eyes full of curiosity. Mark handed her a sandwich. "Go ahead," he verned. She took a bite and nodded. "It's good. Very soft." Mark opened a jar of jam. "Try this with the bread. It's sweet." Tanar dipped her bread into the jam and tasted it. Her eyes lit up. "Like the flowers from my home," she said. But sweeter. They ate slowly, enjoying the quiet around them. The sun felt warm on their faces, and the gentle wind made the grass dance. Tinar laid back on the blanket and looked at the clouds. "One of them looks like a sleeping creature," she said, pointing. Mark looked up. "That one? I think it looks like a boat." They laughed. It was the kind of laughter that needed no reason, just peace. After the meal, Tinar sat up, holding a piece of pie. She looked at Mark seriously. "May I ask something?" "Of course," he said. She hesitated. "When you first found me, did you ever think about eating me?" Mark blinked, shocked by the question. Then he shook his head and laughed kindly. "No, never. I don't eat people. That's not what humans do." "But the story said you might," she said, the voice small. He looked at her gently. "I understand. If I only knew stories about creatures who wanted to harm me, I'd be scared too. But the truth is, I just wanted to help you." "Why?" Mark smiled. "Because you were hurt. Because I was alone. Because I could." Tinar looked down at her pie, then up at him again. "You feed me like family." He nodded. "That's what it feels like, doesn't it?" She smiled softly. "Yes, it does." After the meal, they walked by a nearby stream. The water was clear, and fish swam slowly below the surface. Tinar crouched near the edge and dipped her fingers in. "It's cold," she said. "Good for thinking," Mark replied. Tossing a small pebble into the water, they sat by the stream for a long time, saying nothing, just listening to the world later. As the sun began to lower in the sky, Mark packed up the picnic. Tinar helped fold the blanket. She looked back at the meadow once before they left. "I'll remember this place," she whispered. Mark smiled. "Me too." As they walked back, Tinar said, "Still don't understand one thing." "What's that?" he asked. "You spend so much time cooking and giving food, but you never ask for anything in return." Mark thought for a moment, then said, "I guess. Giving food is my way of showing care. It's how I connect. Some people use words, others use music. I use food." Tinar nodded slowly. "You make food the way others make art." "That's a nice way to say it," Mark replied. That evening, back at the house, Tinar sat at the table, flipping through their little word notebook. She added a new drawing, a plate with a sandwich and a fruit drink beside a tree. Beside it, she wrote Earthword, Picnic Virenword, Nalavara, Joy, under sky in her language. Asterisk Mark peeked at the page and smiled.
"Wow, that's perfect, Tinar."
Looked at him with calm eyes. "Mark, you've changed what I think about humans." "I'm glad," he said, "but I wonder." She added, "What would happen if more humans and Viren met each other like we did?" Mark looked thoughtful. "Maybe there would be more picnics and fewer fears." That night, Tinar stood outside the house and looked up at the stars. "Found the faint blue dot again or home? I wonder if they're watching," she said. Mark stepped beside her. "They are? I hope they see how brave you've been." She turned to him. "You were brave too. You didn't run when you saw me." He chuckled. "I guess we both took a chance." Tinar smiled. "And it tasted like strawberry jam." They both laughed under the stars. In her heart, Tinar knew things would change soon, or people would come looking. But now she had something powerful to tell them. Humans were not monsters. Some just wanted to share a meal, and maybe a friendship. The stars above Earth sparkled quietly, but Tinar's mind was full of noise. She sat by the window in Mark's house, holding a small silver cube. It was smooth and silent, no lights, no sounds. It was her emergency communicator broken during the crash. She had been trying to fix it for days. Mark walked in with 2 mugs of warm tea. "Still no signal?" he asked kindly. Tina shook her head. "No, but I think I'm close." Mark placed the tea next to her. "I'll figure it out." Tinar gave a small smile. "Thank you, Mark, for everything." He sat across from her. "You don't need to thank me. Just like having you here." His voice was quiet. Tinar looked at him. She had come to Earth as a scared visitor. Now, she felt like part of something, a home, a friendship, a warm kitchen full of laughter and food. But she also knew time was running out. that night. After Mark went to bed, Tinar stayed awake, working. On the cube, she opened its tiny panel with careful hands, connecting small wires, tapping soft buttons. Then suddenly the cube blinked once. She gasped. A green light appeared. Signal found. Tinar stared at it. The message was already going out to her planet, to the Council of Viren. She felt both relief and fear. What would they think? What would they do? Would they believe her if she said humans were kind? She switched the cube off for now. Tomorrow, she would have to decide what to tell them. The next morning, Mark found Tinar in the kitchen, stirring something in a pot. "Smells amazing," said, smiling. "I used your recipe," she replied. He raised his eyebrows. "So now you're cooking for me?" She nodded, laughing a little. "It's only fair." They sat at the table and shared the meal together. The stew was thick and full of fresh vegetables. Mark took a bite and smiled wide. "This is perfect," he said. "You're a natural." Tinar felt proud. For the first time, she had given something back. Not just words, but food, care, and time. After breakfast, she told him about the cube. "I fixed it last night," she said. A message was sent. Mark paused. "So, your people know where you are now?" She nodded. "Yes, they'll come." There was a long silence. "What will they do when they arrive?" he asked quietly. Tinar looked down. "That's what I don't know." Later that day, they sat outside in the garden. Tinar picked herbs while Mark pulled weeds. The sun was warm, but their thoughts were heavy. Tinar looked at the sky. "On my world, we follow rules strictly. We listen to the elders. If they say humans are dangerous, it's hard to change their minds." Mark looked up from the dirt. "But you changed yours." "Yes," she said softly, "'cause you showed me something different. You gave me food, safety, and friendship." Mark nodded. "Maybe when they see you're safe, they'll listen." Tinar wasn't so sure, but she hoped. That evening, they made dinner together again, flatbread, with roasted vegetables and herbs. Mark even brought out a candle and placed it on the table. "What's this for?" Tinar asked. He smiled. "Just to make it special." They ate. Tinar said, "You know, we have something like this on my planet. A quiet dinner shared between two people. Call it a Rayleigh. It means connection." "I like that," Mark said. She looked at him. "So do I." After dinner, she went outside to check the cube again. The green light blinked once, then twice. Incoming message received. Tinar took a deep breath and opened the message. A small blue hologram appeared above the cube. It was her older brother. "Rilan, Tinar, we received your signal. Are coming. Stay where you are. If the humans have harmed you, we will protect you. We land in 2 Earth rotations." Then the message ended. She stared at the cube. They were coming inside. Mark saw the worry on her face. "Is everything okay?" "My brother is on his way," she said quietly. "They think you may have hurt me. They don't understand." Mark looked serious. "Then we'll have to help them understand." That night, Tinar couldn't sleep. She walked into the kitchen and opened their little dictionary notebook. She turned to the last page and began to write, "Human word, peace Viren word." Valanche stared at it for a long time. Then she added, "Peace starts with a plate shared between strangers." The next morning, Mark was already outside, working in the garden. Tinar joined him. She knelt beside him and said, "When my people come, I want them to eat with us. I want them to taste the food, see the garden, and meet you like I did." Mark looked at her. "A big meal." She nodded. "A meal. That shows who you are, who we can be." Mark smiled slowly. "Then let's make it the best one yet." Together, they planned. They picked fresh vegetables, washed berries, and baked bread. They prepared soups and fruit pies. Tinar made a drink from Viren herbs she had brought in her suit. For 2 days, they worked side by side. The table was set outside under the trees, with plates, bowls, and small signs with names in both languages. A message from Earth. And from Viren, on the morning of the 3rd day, the air trembled. A silver ship came down from the sky, silent and bright. Land. It landed in the clearing beyond the trees. Tina R. stood calmly, hands at her side. Mark stood beside her. The door of the ship opened. A tall figure stepped out. It was Rielan. His eyes locked on Tinarand, then on Mark. Tinarand stepped forward. "Brother," she said. "This is the human who saved me." Rylan looked unsure. His eyes scanned the food, the table, the peaceful home behind them. "We thought you were in danger," he said. "I was afraid," Tinar replied. "But not of him. I was afraid because I didn't understand. Now I do." Rylan looked at Mark. "You are the one who made these meals?" Mark nodded. "Yes, I just cooked and listened." Tinar smiled. "And he never ate me." Rylan blinked, surprised by her joke. Then slowly he smiled too. The silver ship stood quietly in the clearing, its smooth surface shining under the bright sun. Tinar's older brother Rylan and his team had stepped out. Their eyes were sharp and serious, scanning the earth forest and the small home where Tinar had stayed. Mark stood beside Tinar, calm but alert. He knew this moment was important. Rylan approached slowly. "Shh. You said this human fed you and did not harm you?" Tinar nodded. "Yes, brother. He gave me food, shelter, and kindness." Rylan's gaze moved to the table. There were plates, filled with fresh vegetables, bread, and colorful drinks. The scent of the food was strong but pleasant. "You invite us to eat this?" Rylan asked, surprised. Mark smiled softly. "Yes, please join us." At first, Rylan's team was unsure. Their species rarely shared meals with others, especially humans. But hunger and curiosity grew stronger than caution. One by one, they sat around the table. Mark served the stew he had made. Tana brought out the special drink from her planet. The others looked at the food, hesitant. Rylan was the first to taste the vegetable stew. He took a small spoonful, and his eyes widened in surprise. "It is good," he said slowly. Others followed. They tasted bread, fresh salad, and sweet fruit pies. No one felt danger. No one felt fear. Instead, they felt something new, as they ate. Tinar told them stories about Mark, how he had found her in the forest, how he fed her patiently every day, and how he never tried to hurt her. Rylan listened closely. "We thought humans were monsters," he said quietly. "But this is different." Mark smiled. "Humans are many things. Some are loud and rough, but many are kind and gentle. We use food to show care, not to harm." Tinar looked at her brother. "You must see with your own eyes. Not only hear old stories." Rylan nodded slowly. "I see." After the meal, they all sat around the fire. The alien team was curious about Earth's food and customs. Mark showed them pictures from his books. Tinar shared stories about her planet and how meals were important there too. The night was calm and quiet. The first time the two species felt connected. Rylan spoke. "We will tell the council that humans are not what we feared." Tinar smiled brightly. "You will see that Earth and Viren can be friends." Mark looked at Tinar with respect. "You changed the way your people see us." Tinar nodded. "And you changed the way I see humans." The next morning, the aliens prepared to leave. They thanked Mark for his kindness and Tinar for her courage. Rylan placed a hand gently on Tinar's shoulder. "You have done well, sister." She smiled. "Sled. I learned from the best." Mark shook Rylan's hand. "If you ever want to visit again, you're welcome." Rylan nodded. "We may return. With peace." The ship rose into the sky. Tinar watched it disappear among the stars. She felt a deep hope inside her heart. Mark took her hand. "What will you do now?" Tinar looked at him. "Stay. Learn more. Help others see the truth." Mark smiled. "I'd like that." Together, they walked back to the garden, ready for new beginnings. The sun rose gently over the quiet forest, casting long shadows between the trees. Tinar stood outside Mark's house, looking at the sky. The air was fresh, filled with bird song and the soft rustle of leaves. She thought about everything that had happened since her pod crashed on Earth, the fear she had felt, the kindness she had found, and the new hope growing inside her. News from Tinar's people spread quickly after Rylan returned. The Council of Iron called meetings and shared the stories of the human named Mark. They listened to Tinar's reports and looked at the pictures of the garden, the meals, and the peaceful home. Slowly, their fear began to change into curiosity. The idea that humans might be kind, gentle, and able to share was new, but it was real. Back on Earth, Tinar and Mark worked together to prepare for the future. They planted more vegetables, cooked new recipes, and wrote their little dictionary, with new words every day. Tinar sometimes wondered what her life would have been if she had never crashed here. But she knew she was meant to meet Mark, to learn about Earth, to share that knowledge with her people. One afternoon, as they tended the garden, a message came from the Viren Council. They asked for more contact. They wanted to send a small group of explorers, not to fight, but to learn. Tina, AR smiled and showed Mark the message. "It's a new beginning," she said softly. Mark nodded. "A future built on trust." When the new visitors arrived, Tina and Mark welcomed them with open hands and warm food. The aliens were cautious at first, but as the days passed, they saw the truth for themselves. They learned to cook earth food, walked in the forest, and listened to Mark's stories about human kindness. One evening, Tinar and Mark sat under the stars. Tinar held Mark's hand. "Thank you," she said simply. Mark smiled. "For what?" "For showing me that humans are not what I feared. For teaching me that food can be love, not fear." Mark squeezed her hand gently. "And thank you for showing me that friendship can cross the stars." The future was uncertain, but Tinar and Mark believed it would be bright. They knew that peace between two worlds was possible, one meal at a time.